Welcome to the Fallen State. I'm Jesse Lee Peterson. Thank you all so much for being with me. Don't forget that you can support the Fallen State by going to TheFallenState.tv/donate and locals.com. And we also have some new merch on the Fallen State. Punchy's Coffee. I have my own coffee now. Punchy's Coffee. So go to jesseleepeterson.shop for the Punchy's Coffee. Amazing. I have with me someone that I've been knowing all my life, and I've always respected all the time, hardworking man, Bob Woodson. And he is a civil rights activist, author, and the founder and president of the Woodson Center, a nonprofit organization that supports and revitalize low-income community. Bob, as I said earlier, I can't believe I finally have you on my show. I've been knowing you forever.
Yeah, we have passed each other a couple times.
Oh, yes. So, Bob, you've been working on helping the community, helping all people, but especially Black people, for a long time. Are you happy and pleased at the work you've done and the outcome that has happened as a result?
Well, I am, in the sense that I've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
Just a little background. I was a young civil rights activist in Westchester, Pennsylvania, the hometown of Bayard Rustin. And so I knew Bayard, and they would bring the press, and I met King through Bayard Rustin.
Right.
But I became really disenchanted and left the movement following King's death on the issue of forced busing for integration. I was against it. The opposite of segregation is desegregation, not integration.
Yeah.
So I fell out with one half of the civil rights movement. And then I was leading some demonstrations outside of a pharmaceutical company. And when they desegregated, they hired 9 Black PhD chemists. And we asked them to join our movement. They said they got these jobs because they were qualified, not because of the sacrifices that we have made. And that happened to me twice. And I realized I was in the wrong struggle.
Yeah.
And then when the poverty programs came along, I knew from the first year that it was going to be a disaster. And then a lot of Blacks who were civil rights leaders became Black elected officials. And they were the ones administering these funds, where 70 cents of most of the dollars go not to the poor, but to the people who help the poor.
Yeah.
And so that was a major split. So from then on, I began to work on behalf of low-income people of all races. And that's been my calling for the past 45, 50 years.
When you were a part of working with them, the so-called civil rights leaders, were you as conservative then as you are now? Because when I look back on them, I didn't realize as a young man how liberal and that they had like a socialist mentality. I didn't realize that until later in life. Were you conservative then or more liberal?
I was, I sided more. There's always been a good, healthy debate within the Black community between Malcolm X. I was closer to Malcolm X than I was King.
Right.
And who believed in self-determination, and even some of the positions of the Nation of Islam. And so I found myself, and the civil rights movement split. Remember, the students engaged in civil disobedience in Greensboro, and they were opposed by the leadership in Atlanta. King and Thurgood Marshall did not want us to engage. So there was a healthy split and debate within the Black community that's gone today.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I found myself more isolated because I didn't know my position was conservative. All I knew I was for the least of God's children.
That's right.
And I consider my politics radical pragmatism.
I have come to realize that civil rights movement, especially so-called civil rights movement, excuse me, especially when they forced busing and all that stuff started happening, it looked like, and at the time I was living in Alabama, I grew up on a plantation down there near Montgomery, and Black people seem to be more independent, more free thinkers and independent then than they are today. And over the years, they seem to have gotten worse with free thinking. What would it take to get blacks, and not all, but most, back to free thinking and relying on self again?
I think, first of all, you can't generalize about the black community. I think the biggest split in America isn't between whites and blacks. It's low-income blacks and upper-income blacks.
Yes.
There's more of a class split than it is a race split. So that's where the divide is. And also, I think blacks in the South, they say white folks in the South didn't care how high a black got as long as you didn't get too close. and in the North, they didn't care how close you got as long as you don't get too high.
Yeah.
Most of your black millionaires are in the South.
Yes.
Most of the wealth accumulation in Black Wall Streets are among blacks in the South because of the harsh resistance of the government. We were compelled to be self-sufficient. So when I look for role models of self-sufficiency and whatnot, I looked in the South.
That's a very good point. And it's just unfortunate that the blacks in the North think that the blacks in the South were not doing that well because they've been told by the leadership that the blacks were not. They were not able to function, which was not true.
Yeah, see, I've always believed in our recent studies, when whites were at their worst, we were at our best.
Yeah.
So we destroyed this myth that somehow the problems of out-of-wedlock births and crime and violence and unemployment in the black community somehow is a legacy of slavery and Jim Crow. That's BS.
Yeah.
Because the biggest drop in poverty in the black community was from 1945 to 65. It's almost cut in half. More blacks went to college in 1950 to 1960, before we had the civil rights, than any other time. Most of our millionaires came from Morehouse, not from Harvard.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
So, and then our Black Wall Streets, we studied that in the Bronzeville section of Chicago in 1919. There were 731 black-owned businesses and 100 million in real estate assets just in that one section. So you can't say that banks were redlining. We didn't get any money from banks. We had to use our own instrument. Yeah. But liberals tend to dismiss self-sufficiency because it doesn't fit the racial narrative. And so a lot of black leadership thrive in the presence of black complaints and black grievance. And as Booker T. Washington said, there are a class of Negroes who thrive off of the grievance of the blacks.
Yes.
And if we lose our grievance, they lose their income.
That's true. That is so true. So many blacks are being, excuse me, so many blacks are being educated today to have that wrong mentality about America, about life, and the way things should be. Now that these people are being educated in a wrong manner, how would this ever end? What's the end?
Well, part of what we're doing at the Woodson Center is there's a huge bifurcation in the black community. When you talk about choice in education, vouchers, 60 to 70% of low-income blacks support choice and vouchers.
Yeah.
Less than 10% of middle-class black leaders do. A lot of the so-called black leadership support defund the police. 80% of low-income blacks are against defund the police.
All right.
So there are huge differences that do not get acknowledged in there. And so what I think we need to do is that a lot of the people on the left, their authority comes from presenting themselves as being representative of all blacks.
Right.
But what we do, we have about 3,500 grassroots leaders in 39 states. A lot, and most of them are black, not all of them.
Right.
When you give them an opportunity to speak and act for themselves, it undermines the moral authority of those who are supposed to be leaders. So rather than you and me arguing with them, I let 20 of my grassroots leaders who are ex-offenders, who are redeemed and transformed. I let them speak for themselves. I had a debate with Hawk Newman for an hour on C-SPAN. I mean, on YouTube. See, I don't confront him with my argument. I confront him with facts.
Yes. I have family members who I grew up with, and they moved to the city, and for some reason when they moved to the city, their mind changed about real life, right? And even today, they argue with me about Trump because I was talking with them about school voucher and how much the black people want that. They want to be able to take their kids out of these horrible schools and take them to wherever they want. But they're like mad thinking that that's a white idea. You just try to be white. That's not fair to leave other black kids behind. And I'm surprised at my family member who think that way. We all grew up together. It's not like we grew up except they went to the cities and their minds were changed.
Welcome to the club. I got family members the same way, and I can't even talk politics to them.
Right.
No. But, there are examples. In 2018, when DeSantis was running for the governor of Florida, he ran against the black candidate Gillum. Remember? He was the former mayor.
I remember that.
Gillum had Oprah Winfrey and Obama come out and campaign for him. And DeSantis won by a very small percentage of the vote, by 32,000 votes. That's because 100,000 low-income blacks split their ticket and voted for him. So they voted against Oprah and Obama because of his strong support of vouchers and education.
Yeah.
So a lot of our people are waking up and begin to vote their interest as opposed to vote their party. That's why 30% of black men voted for Trump. Yeah.
I remember in LA, some years ago now, we were fighting to get the voucher system here in LA. And blacks were for it. A lot of black people were for it. And then when Maxine Waters and others saw that black people were for it and they're like, going to pass, they brought in Jesse Jackson and others. And I guess they convinced some of the other blacks or whomever they convinced not to vote for the voucher system, but it was really about to pass here in LA at one time.
And Jesse Jackson and Eleanor Holmes Norton, Marion Wright Edelman, all of them sent their kids to Sidwell Friends School.
Yeah.
While opposing vouchers for kids in D.C. Every one of those leaders, even Frank Smith, the superintendent of school who was black, withdrew his child and put her in Sidwell Friends School when he was superintendent of schools. But you see, we tolerate this contradiction and hypocrisy because those blacks use that racial shield to protect them against criticism.
Yeah.
And they use it as a sword against anybody who challenges them.
It's amazing to me that Jesse Jackson and all those guys pretend that they love black people, that they're fighting for black people, but everything they do is to keep the blacks down. And they don't seem to be bothered by that. That's amazing.
Well, that's why this last election, Trump is the first post-racial president.
Yes.
Because he put together a coalition that Republicans have not been able to do in a long time. 30% of black men voted for him.
Yeah.
Half of Hispanics voted for him, even though that joke at the meeting was supposed to finish him. Because people said he's an unorthodox person who is a disruptor. And we need a disruptor. There's nothing worse than the status quo.
Yes. Yeah.
Kamala Harris would have been a vote for the status quo. Yeah. And I say Trump is a disruptor. And that's what we need right now. He is one of the few white people who is not guilty. It's so refreshing to meet a non-guilty white person.
Absolutely. Hopefully with Donald Trump there, the great white hope I call him, is there that we can finally get the voucher system passed. Because I do hear them talking about that we may get there. So I'm hoping that it would happen this time around.
Yeah, and what they need to do, though, is they should spend as much time talking about what things they're for they are than the things that they're against. So you must weed and seed. The gospel says that if you clear a field of weeds and you leave it barren, then weeds 3 times as worse will grow. But if you clear it and then plant new seeds, so the empowerment of low-income people is what they need to focus on, that will plant new seeds where the government was running the farm. The people should take over and run the farms.
Absolutely, man. That's a good point. That's amazing. I'm hoping that they do something that's really work for us. I read that, and I'd like to understand more about you. I read that when you were young, very young, your father expired when you were young. What type of impact did that have on you, and what was that? What was that like growing up without him like that?
Well, my dad, even though he died when I was 9, he just left an indelible impression on me. I worshiped him.
Right
when he came home, I would take his shoes off and run upstairs and get his slippers and put them on. And he was a powerful man. And so he left an impression. He was a member of the Hellcats of the First World War, the fighters. And he sustained life-threatening injuries that ended up killing him decades later. But he left my mother with 5 children and in a low-income Black neighborhood. But he and my mother equipped us with the proper values. So we selected good friends who became surrogate family members. 3 of them are still alive today. And they have served as, it makes me understand why kids turn to gangs and why they need the importance of outside forces on your life.
Yes. You were raised by a stepfather. You had a stepfather in the home.
Yes.
I've noticed that stepfathers don't work in families. Was it difficult for you having a stepfather?
No, the tradition when I was born, well, first of all, I think it's important to understand that there were no middle-class, well-educated people in my neighborhood. We were always bifurcated. Professional Blacks, at least in the North, did not live in the same neighborhoods as those who were truck drivers and garbage collectors and all that. I was in a blue-collar neighborhood, but 98% of all the families had a man and a woman raising children. And so we had a very strong neighborhood that cared for if your mother went to the market, you couldn't go in the house. You had to stay on the street because Miss Maddie across the street would look out for you.
Amazing.
And so, and as I said to people that you didn't hear guns fired. I never heard of elderly people afraid of their grandchildren. There were no elderly people mugged by grandchildren.
Yeah.
No babies were shot in their cribs. I never heard a gun fired all the time when I was a teenager. It's because you were low income, but you had the highest values.
Amazing.
We had some strong households and values. And between 1930 and 1940, we have the highest marriage rate of any group in America. Highest marriage rate.
Yeah. I remember growing up, and I tell this story, I never saw a fight. I had one fight one time in high school over a bat. We were about to bat up, and this guy thought he was going to bat, and I was going to bat. But that's the only fight that I'm aware of. I did not know of anyone getting shot or killed. Blacks were not shooting each other. When I left home, we didn't even lock our door. We would close the door, but we didn't put locks on the doors. None of this stuff was happening when I was growing up. And it wasn't until I moved to the city, Chicago, Indiana, that I started hearing about this stuff with the blacks and seeing it. And I was shocked because I had not seen any of that growing up at all. There was respect for the elderly and everyone.
And there's just this mistaken notion that if you're deprived, then you must be depraved. Just not true.
No.
The most middle-class person in my neighborhood was Mr. Jackson, the barber, who would come to work with a three-piece suit on every day, and it was the superintendent of the Sunday school. It was behavior that defined class, not income.
Absolutely, man.
And values.
It's funny.
That defined middle class, not income.
I remember growing up, and we had a tin roof house, and it had one bedroom, a living room, which had two beds in it. And then we had a wooden stove, a kitchen with wooden stove and everything. But I never for once thought I was poor. It didn't even occur to me. I didn't think that way at all. I thought I was just fine. I didn't know about being poor and all that.
Yeah, we used to have to carry the hot water when you take a bath, heat it, and then take it up the steps and pour it in a tub.
Yeah.
There was no hot water spigot and cold water spigot. It was just a spigot.
That's right. Grandpa tell me about the good old days.
The good old days.
Go ahead.
We loved each other and we didn't destroy each other.
Yeah.
And we live by a set of values. On each corner of my black neighborhood, there was a black-owned business.
Yeah.
The Whitakers had the tailor shop, the Branches, a candy store, the Jacksons, the laundry. I can remember every one of each corner had a black-owned business.
Amazing. It's these type of realities that the blacks need to be hearing, especially young ones. They need to hear this rather than this lie that we were so depressed, we couldn't do anything, we couldn't function. They have that, and it's so wrong. They kept Booker T. Washington away from the public to in a big way, from the blacks, because he was a good inspiration as well, but they made him look like an Uncle Tom, conservative. So a lot of black people don't appreciate Booker T. Washington at all.
But that's why we have published, ever since 1619 came out, we responded by, that said that America was born into slavery and therefore all whites are villains and all blacks are victims. Well, we challenged that. And we have two publications out, one called Red, White, and Black, Saving America from Revisionists and Race Hustlers. And in there, we tell the stories of blacks who achieved against the odds. When whites were at their worst, blacks were at their best. We told the story of 20 people, blacks who were born slaves who died millionaires. Some of them even went back and purchased a plantation on which they were a slave.
Yeah.
And Robert Smalls took in the wife of the slave master who had become demented and also poor. So he expressed radical grace. If Robert Small could take in the slave master's wife, and he was enslaved by the family, how can anybody today be angry because of what happened 100 years ago?
Yeah, that's right. When you mentioned that, I thought about Booker T. Washington. I read up from slavery. And every year, one of our teachers used to take us over to Tuskegee, and we would spend the weekend over there learning about Booker T. Washington and all that. And I read his book about slavery, how he was born enslaved, his parents were sold off and all that, but yet he never hated the white man or white people. And so white people were able to help him along the way because he did not have anger toward them or anyone. He understood what was going on. And I try to tell the blacks the same thing. Don't be angry. It's not true. Your help can come from anywhere. But if you're angry at white people, you're cutting off your opportunities and don't realize it.
No, you're absolutely right. In fact, the Will Crosley, who is going to be my successor, is the CEO of the Pineywood Schools, a 115-year-old black boarding school, Christian black boarding, and still living by the same values that they started. It was started by Lawrence Jones, a man from University of Iowa, the first black who graduated. Instead of going to teach at Hampton, he came down to rural Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi, and sitting on a cedar log taught the first 3 students how to read, and he was helped by a ex-slave, a former slave, who accumulated wealth and donated 40 acres of land, and a white mill owner who donated 10,000 square feet of lumber in 1909. And so that's part of the American story too.
Yeah.
This was done at a time when it was illegal to teach blacks to read in Mississippi, but yet you had a white mill owner and a black ex-slave come together and in a partnership to help this institution grow. And now it has a large campus, 2,000 acres of land. So we, in our books, we tell these stories. Our latest one is called Pathways to Prosperity.
Right.
And so we need to talk about not just slavery and Jim Crow, that's part of it.
Yeah.
But that's America's birth defect. Nobody should be defined by the worst they were in the past.
That's right, man. What? So I want to ask, you're a Christian, am I right?
Yes, sir.
And how long have you been a Christian?
I came to my faith when I was running my organization, and it was a man named Leon Watkins, lived in South Central in the early 80s in a gang territory. And long story short, he was terrorized by the 26-member East Side Crips gang. So he put up signs saying he wants to meet with him, wanted posters. And so they came one day in the back alley of his house where trucks can come through. And 2 of them pulled up in cars with guns. He came by himself. And the gang leader said, "What do you want?" He said, "I want to talk to you about your life." They sat on a trash can for 3 hours. And the next day he had him in Bible study. And a week after that, he had the whole 26-member gang in Bible study.
Amazing.
I witnessed that. I witnessed the power of God operating through Leon. And so I kept calling him and says, "Well, how did you do that?" And he would read the gospel to me. And so I became a person of faith because I witnessed the transformation of a street gang because of one believer, the witness of one believer.
What's the difference between Christianity then and Christianity now?
When the church started, it was a sacrifice. You were in jeopardy if you were a Christian. Unfortunately, some people are using the church to prosper themselves instead of emptying themselves of self-importance and let God use you as a vessel. That's the difference.
That's amazing. When I was growing up, I didn't see women preachers in the churches, especially in black churches. Maybe they're in white churches, I don't know. But I didn't see them in black churches. Now you have women preachers, pastor, deacon, whatever they call it. And I noticed that since the women have become so-called leaders of the churches, Christianity has gotten worse. It's weaker. People are less interested in it. Should women be allowed to be leaders in churches or anywhere, really, but especially churches?
Well, I think that's above my pay grade right now. Jesse, I'm very clear about what I don't know. And that's one of these subjects that I just don't know enough about it. So I don't have a comment on that. But I do know that there has been a feminization going on where that I'm clear about. And that's why the kind of church leaders I look for is like Tommy Quick in South Carolina and some of the more fundamental churches. I'm an Orthodox person. I think I like almost anything that's Orthodox. Orthodox Jews, Orthodox Muslims, Orthodox. I guess and that's where I define I'm Orthodox.
Oh, okay.
I don't like revisions of old things.
I can hear my grandfather now. If he knew that a woman was a preacher of the church, he'd be like, "That gal need to go sit down. I ain't going to that church." There's no way he would tolerate that at all. Do you believe in the order of God, God in Christ, Christ over man, man over woman, women over children? Do you believe in that order?
I do believe that in what a man's role is, and it's very clear of what our responsibility is. I mean, I was raised that way, and I will die that way.
Yeah, me too.
But you got to look at what did it produce. You know, when like you were saying, when I was young, it was those old time religion.
Yeah.
That kept us straight.
Yeah.
At the time when we were we were much worse conditions, being lynched every day. But and that's why one of my heroes and the foundation of my organization is Joseph from Genesis. He was mistreated by his family and in prison, but he never succumbed to bitterness.
Yeah. Nor
did he lose his faith in God.
Amazing. I love that. That's true.
Yeah.
And speaking of that,
he was sold into slavery by his brothers, served in the house of Potiphar. His wife lusted for him. He refused to have sex with her. He said because it would be a sin against his God and a violation of the trust that the master placed in him.
Amazing.
And then she accused him of rape, and he attempted rape, and he went to prison, but he became the best prisoner.
Right on. That's right. That's amazing.
And
they don't make them like that anymore.
He languished in prison until he was 31, until Pharaoh had these dreams, and one of the cupbearers remembered him and brought him up. But he was more humble now. He didn't say that I had the dreams, and no, he said, I am but an empty vessel, that God is the one who interprets dreams. So he had to become humble. It took all that time and pain to exercise self-importance out of him.
Yeah.
Because only if you're an empty, humble vessel, can God use you in ways that are important to him,
yes,
not in ways that are important to you.
Absolutely. That's amazing. Also, I noticed, Bob, that women don't obey their husband. When I was growing up, I couldn't even imagine a woman not obeying her husband. Women don't obey their husband. Should a man marry an educated woman because they don't make for good wives and good mothers? They want to be in competition with the men. Should a man marry a woman who will not obey him?
Well, I think you got me above my pay grade again, man.
What?
I think you can be educated and everything and still be humble spirit. Your spirit is informed not by your education or your knowledge, but by your heart. And so if you are a very smart person and therefore are a humble person, I think that it works. But
Bob, I've never, ever seen an educated woman that's humble.
Well, I have a wife like that.
She's educated?
Yes.
Is she humble?
She's humble.
Really? And does she obey you?
Well, we obey each other.
You obey your wife? What?
No, we serve each other. I think we serve each other in ways that we both need. It's like Bill Withers has that song about somebody said, you're being used. I said, but being used feels this good, then keep using me till you use me up.
Keep on using me until you use me up.
Use me up. I think the words are, I want to spread the news that being used feels this good, then keep on using me till you use me up.
That's right. That's amazing. Yeah. How long you been married, Bob?
46 years.
That's amazing.
Yes, sir. 46 years and still having fun.
I hear a lot of people talk about civil rights. Can you define for me what is the civil rights? I never really, and it may be because I'm black and slow, but I never really understood that. What is civil rights? What are civil rights?
I think it is defined by having the rights, civil rights, meaning the right to vote, the right to assemble, to do all the things that American creed says you're supposed to: life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. You want the freedom to do what everybody does.
All right.
That's a civil rights. And the very fact that we had to have a civil rights law passed because we were denied those civil rights. You couldn't assemble where you wanted to. You couldn't vote where you wanted to. You were denied all the civil rights that were given to you by the Constitution. And so I think that the civil rights movement rightfully fought for those. I know I did.
Right.
But I didn't fight to be treated special.
Yes.
I think we crossed the line, and when we're talking about we want to be treated special, I think civil rights, and we wanted equal opportunity.
Yeah.
And,
right.
and so that's where I think that I parted company with the civil rights movement on that very point of definition. When they went from civil rights to affirmative action, we want to blame white folks for everything. I think there needs to be a 2-year moratorium on whining about white folks.
I agree. That would definitely help.
Yeah.
I got to ask this. I noticed that blacks, not all but most, are very angry today. Whereas when I was growing up, I don't remember seeing that type of anger in black people. Where did that come from?
Well, if you're talking about these people who are screaming on these talk shows, I think it's fake anger. I think the more privileged a black person is, in many cases, the more angry they have to appear. Because anger, public expressions of anger, become a substitute for assertive action to improve conditions.
Yeah.
And I think all of Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton getting off a private jet, his organization spent $1 million in private jet travel to go to protest American capitalism.
Yeah.
Stepping out in a $1,000 suit, smoking a $25 cigar, stepping out of a Learjet saying how bad America is.
What a mess.
See, that's the anger coming from a person like that.
Yeah.
It can be just totally discounted.
But I also see anger in a lot of young black people as well. You see it where they go off on you just like that. It doesn't take anything. They hurt one another. They kill each other. They fight with each other. I didn't see that growing up. And these young people that's so angry, is that due to not having fathers in the home?
There are multiple reasons why people are going through it, but different groups are suffering. I said that the reason that we must become post-racial and put race aside, because a recent Harvard study found that the leading cause of death for young people, for blacks, is homicide. For Appalachian or low-income whites, is prescription drugs. And for upper-income Silicon Valley communities, it's suicide. Suicide among Silicon Valley teenagers is 6 times the national average. 6 times. Amazing. So there's a hole in the heart of our young people where they devalue their life. If you devalue your life, you will take yours, someone else's, or you'll take your own. So we need to to find out why this hole is in the hearts of our children. But we'll never get there if we first have to confront each other on issues of race. We don't have a race problem. We have a grace problem.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm fighting for us to change.
This month, I believe it's this month is Black History Month. When you think about Black History
Month?
Yeah.
I wish it was every week instead of a month. But, I'll take what they give us. But I think it's an opportunity to spend every day talking about the triumphs in the face of despair. How Blacks triumphed, how when we were denied access to hotels, we built our own.
Yeah.
When they denied access, did you know we had our own railroad that formed in 1868 in Baltimore and that successfully ran from Baltimore to Maine?
I did not know that. So there was a Black built railroad?
Their own railroad. Yeah.
What the?
1,000 Blacks were fired from this railroad company for striking. And so they were fired. So they borrowed $10,000 from the local burial society in the churches. And they bought and operated successfully a railroad that operated from Baltimore to Maine for 18 years. And they even hired whites in the railroad. So these are the kinds of things that our young people need to be studying. How is it capitalized? How do we run it?
Yeah.
And so part of what we're offering at the Woodson Center in our 2 publications is that we have talked about all kinds of people who were born slaves who died millionaires.
Yeah. Well, Bob, those are not the things that they are teaching Blacks during Black History. If they're going to teach, they should teach. I've never heard about a Black railroad that was built by Black people.
And run by Black people, and they hired white people at the time.
Wow. I've not heard that before.
Yes, sir.
See, this is the type of stuff that the Blacks need to be hearing because it's encouraging, not putting them down thinking they can't make it because of their color.
Right. When these middle-class liberals keep saying to the young black and white people that all whites are villains and all Blacks are victims, maybe these kids are saying to themselves, maybe we're being accused because we're not worthy.
Yeah.
Maybe what they're saying about us is true. And so maybe that's why some of the despair is setting into the lives of these kids, which is causing them to feel that they are not worth very much. That's why I think that cause of some of these problems are coming from so-called liberal activists who are teaching people to be fragile and vulnerable.
That's amazing. That's unfortunate too, man, because I know I work with and talk to a lot of young Black men and women. They just feel lost and they think that it's because of someone else, meaning that they think it's because of the white man. And I'm like, it's not true. It's not true. You need to take control of your own life and do what you want to do. Just do it and don't think that someone can hold you back, because if you're not thinking that way, you cannot be held back, whatever that's supposed to mean.
No, I say that it's worse to be telling somebody. There are 2 ways to prevent someone from competing. One is to deny them by law, the way we did in Jim Crow. The other one is tell them you don't have to compete.
Yeah. Because
you're Black, you can sit at the gambling table and whites are required to give you a winning hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they don't give you a winning hand, they're racist.
Amazing. When I was growing up, I never thought that I couldn't make it in life. I just didn't think that way at all because I wasn't raised that way. And my grandparents raised me, and they told me at 18, you're out of here. And I was down in Alabama. And I'm like, well, where am I going? I'm in Alabama on a plantation, right? They said, I don't know, and I don't care. You're out of here. And when I turned 18, I finished high school, and I went to Indiana. I got me a job because I wanted to move to California. I got me a job, and I worked for 2 weeks. I bought an airline ticket for $50. I moved to LA, and I made some horrible mistakes along the way because I didn't know. I was young, but I never thought that someone could hold me back. I had different jobs, but I did what I wanted to do. I bought a house when I wanted to, bought a car when I wanted to, I dated when I wanted to. And I only thought for 1 minute, I started listening to Jesse Jackson and all those guys when I moved here to LA at 18. And they were saying that the white man was holding you back. You can't make it because of white people. And I was young, and I remember I became angry at my white bosses. And in my mind, I thought they were trying to hold me back. I realized it wasn't true, but I never thought that someone could hold me back in life. I didn't even know how someone can hold you back if you could want to do what you wanted to do. It just was not in my thinking.
Well, I'm a little older than you, and I can tell you the same thing, that I didn't grow up believing that my destiny was determined what somebody else did.
Yeah, yeah.
I always believed that I wasn't the brightest bulb, but I outwork anybody.
That's right. That's right, man. There were 18 in my class. I was number 18, and I wasn't the smartest guy, but I knew how to work. I knew how to pay my bills. I knew how to do all that. And they always told me, as long as you can work with your hands, you're going to always have food on your table. So I've never gone hungry.
Yeah, when I got out and needed a job and I didn't have car fare, I walked 60 blocks.
Yeah.
And borrowed some money from somebody on my job so I could get home.
Amazing.
So I struggled.
So Bob, because of time here, I was under the impression that you were conservative, but I read the other day that you're independent.
Yeah, I really do, because I think that I have not been happy with what conservatives have done all the time either. In other words, I'm conservative in the sense that my strategic interest is served by conservatives. Conservatives don't have any proprietary interest in me being poor.
Yeah.
So strategically, I feel more comfortable with conservatives than I am people who patronize me. And so I worked for the American Enterprise Institute for 5 years. And what I found refreshing about when I met a white conservative is that they were willing to argue with me.
Yeah. Nice.
White liberals do not argue with blacks.
Nope.
No matter what stupid position you take, they will never challenge you. And I met Peter Berger and some of the white conservatives, James Q. Wilson. It was the first time I debated with a white person on issues of policy. And it was refreshing to have someone debate me and say, you're wrong about this. And I felt respected. Yeah. In a way that I never felt respected from white liberals who smile and tell you, oh, you're the greatest thing since, sliced bread.
Yeah.
And they go behind your back and vote against you.
Yes. Amazing. Did you ever meet Walter Williams?
Walter was a good friend from Philly.
Amazing.
We're both from Philly. I was born and raised in West Philly, and he was in North Philly. So, yeah, but I knew Walter. He was one of the first black conservatives I met when I came to D.C.
Man, I remember when I first started my organization, he was one of the first speakers I had to come and speak to the people. And then he joined my board. He became a board member of my organization. And it was an honor to know him and work with him and talk to him. I learned so much.
Yeah, Walter's very smart. I told him all the time. Jay Parker, too.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate that a lot of black people didn't get a chance to know him either. The so-called black leadership made him look like an Uncle Tom, whatever they call Uncle Tom, a sellout. So a lot of blacks lost the opportunity to learn from him.
No, you're right, but I still quote him. He talked about at the turn of the century, there were 5 high schools, black high schools, one in New York, Baltimore, Washington, Atlanta, and New Orleans. They had crumbling buildings, used textbooks, half the budget of white schools, and every one of them out-tested the white schools in their cities. And so if we were able to achieve in the face of those circumstances, why can't we do it today?
Yeah, yeah. You're absolutely right, man. My class, the graduators of my class, maybe one or two didn't go off and do anything, but all of them became doctors and lawyers and school teachers, and they had businesses. All of them. I couldn't believe everybody did very well. And I went to an all-black school as well. So you're right about that.
Yep. And when I get out of the military with my GED, thank God there was no affirmative action that would put me right at Penn. Instead, I went to a small black college, Cheney, where I was nurtured by some caring professors who really took a lot of personal time with these 12 veterans and taught us how to read and had cross references. They taught us how to study.
Yes.
And what to study.
Yeah. Amazing.
After 4 years of there, I was ready then to be competitive at a large Ivy University.
Amazing. How do you feel about DEI?
It should be named D.I.E.
Yeah. Amazing. So, Bob,
that's what it is. It's sick. In fact, I just did a posting on that thing. Listen to this, man. Harvard just closed a slavery remembrance program that cost $100 million, and the purpose was to identify people who were Harvard professors and staff who were slave owners. $100 million. Who the hell cares?
Right.
Can you imagine what could have happened in the inner cities with that kind of money?
Yeah.
And these white liberals are sitting around in their salons discussing who owned whom back in the day. Who cares?
Yeah. A mess. So, Bob, now that Donald Trump is there, what are you hoping to see from his administration?
Well, first of all, I'm really pleased that he's taking bold moves to just overturn the tables in the temple.
I love that. You're right.
The DEI tables overturned.
Yeah.
He's stopping all the stupid expenditures of USAID. I just wish he would be much more careful about how he does it, because he's feeding his enemies by coming in with a broad brush. He should be more discerning and more strategic in what you cut and how it's cut, instead of just coming in and saying everything is bad. So I just wish he would be a little more disciplined in how he's carrying out his agenda. That's all.
They was talking about getting rid of the Department of Education. You agree with that?
I mean, it may or may not be a good decision, but when you make a move like that, you need to have a sound basis to say that this is what the department does. And therefore, these are good things that it does, and these are bad things. The good things that it does, this is how we're going to continue those things. But to come in with a sledgehammer and just say we're going to just take it out without a plan that tells me what parts of it are bad, maybe it does need to be some, but you need to make a case for it and not just a general broadside.
Oh, okay. Will you get a chance to consult with them or his administration at all?
You know, in '83, I brought a group of 26 Black civic leaders to meet with Reagan and his cabinet. I hope to be able to do the same thing with Trump.
Yeah, I hope you do too. I really do.
I hope we'll have an opportunity to sit and advise them on issues of race and poverty.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping.
I hope for that, Bob. Bob, I got to put you on the hot seat, so I need you to answer these questions as quickly as possible.
All right, if I can.
All right.
If it's a pay grade, I'll be able to answer them.
All right.
The hot seat.
What is a man?
A man is a man who fathers children and cares for his family.
What is love?
Love is yielding to the needs of others and God's love comes to you, and you must convey it to others.
Do you love white people?
I love all people.
True or false? When she's crying, she's lying.
I don't agree.
Did human beings evolve from monkeys?
No, they evolved from God.
Is a climate change real?
No, I'm not a climate enthusiast.
Have you ever seen a ghost?
Nope.
Is it ever okay to tell a woman she's fat?
No, I don't think so.
Should a woman get pregnant if she can't stay home and raise the man's children?
Absolutely not.
Does a chicken have lips?
No, sir.
True or false? Sending your child to a public school is child abuse.
Almost. Yep.
True or false? Women were not created to lead, but to follow.
Not sure about that one.
Did you have fun?
Absolutely.
Bob, you made my day, man. I can't believe I had the opportunity to really sit with you and learn more about you. Tell the folks how to get your books, to your website, or whatever you want to promote there.
Yeah, my website is woodsoncenter.org. The woodsonCenter.org. And if you go on my website, you'll be able to for the books, and also on Amazon, the books are available. If you put my name in or the Woodson Center's name on Amazon, you'll see both of our books for sale. The first one that came out in 2020 sold out within 4 weeks.
That's amazing.
Republished.
Nice.
So we're just delighted for this opportunity.
Right on. Well, thank you again, Bob, for coming on. I absolutely appreciate it. And I really wish you well in everything that you're working on. I hope you get a chance to talk to the great white hope, Donald Trump, and make some suggestions to him as well. And tell your wife I said to obey you.
I will tell her that.
All right. Thank you all for tuning in. I absolutely appreciate it. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, ring the bell. Check out Punchy's Coffee at jesseleepeterson.shop. And if you'd like to see someone else on the show, contact my producer at TheFallenState.tv. All right? Support what we're doing. I absolutely appreciate it. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it.
All right, my friend.
All right. Amazing.